Hi guys, it's Christina here. I hope you're having an amazing day wherever you are. So I wanted to come and talk about a number of things. One of which, of course, I've just got my hair analysis back from my daughter. And, some of the things that have come up in that are cabbage and Brussels sprouts, for example. And cabbage, of course, is one of those foods that I usually will use to make ferments with. So for me, getting her hair analysis test back will mean just that I'm going to make sure that we have a couple of other ferments in our house that actually aren't based on cabbage. Now, her hair test did say that sauerkraut was fine for her. However, I still am going to want to pursue things like gingered carrots, getting a few other fermented vegetables into her diet. It came up with cabbage, but it didn't come up with wombok. So I'll do a quick switch of wombok cabbage, and instead of using things like onions, I'm going to be using like leeks and so on, which came up fine in the analysis as well. So for me, getting that information from her hair test is really just a way that I can actually be a little bit more individualized in making sure that she's got what she needs and what she doesn't need. And there is lots of other information that I can start to extrapolate from her analysis as well, which is one of the things that I like, because I don't have to go and get her to go have a blood test, because I can extrapolate from her symptoms and her signs and her hair test or analysis some of the other things that are going on in her body. So I'm going to use that to actually help create some beautiful ferments that will actually work really well for her and help lift her up, because she's had a couple of colds and flus recently, and it doesn't help that we live in a house that has mold in it, which is a problem and part of the reason that we want to get going with traveling. So thought I'd come and share that. The other thing that I want to do is come back, because last week I asked if anyone had any questions that they wanted to get answers for. And so I've had a few people that would comment, and I thought I'll come and answer those questions. So let's see. One of the questions that I've got, several people asked this question, which was how to counteract the 5G effects. Now, this is a really interesting discussion because, of course, we're having 5G now coming into Australia, and different parts of the country have already got it. Other parts of the country, they're starting to put it. Like I know here in Tasmania, there's parts of Hobart that already have 5G up and running and functioning. You can buy phones now that have got the 5G functioning method on it. And then, of course, there's lots of people that are petitioning to try and say no to 5G. And while I think that's a really great idea, and I would like for that to be something that made a difference, I don't think that it will make a difference. I think that we've got this roller coaster of technology that is going through at the moment, and things like 5G are going to keep coming. So we are going to be exposed to more of those EMFs. And even just like if you watched any of Zach Ollie's videos this week, Zach Ollie Organic videos this week, where she's been talking about, she's had her little frequency radar thing out. I don't even know what it's called. And she plugs it in. She's showing you that, when she's close to a socket, that her ions go up, and we should essentially be neutral, but the positive ions are going up, which then disrupts and dysregulates the DNA of our person, like our personal DNA. It disrupts that and damages it, and then leads to more chronic illnesses. And so she was showing that, and she's also showed how to create just a copper bedding mattress cover, so you can put it on your bed and you can earth while you're sleeping. So she's been showing some of those things, and I think that is really the way for us to go, because we cannot really control. Like, if I have my internet turned off here, the people next door still have their internet on, and the people on the other side still have their internet on. So I'm still going to be exposed to the Bluetoothing of those. I'm still going to be exposed to the EMFs of those. I'm still in my house where I have power points. I'm still going to be exposed to those EMFs, and 5G is just another upscale of those EMFs that we're being exposed to on a really regular basis. And so I don't think it is realistic for all of us to be able to move out into the country to some place where there is no EMFs, or you've got no neighbours, or, you're kind of isolating yourself in, an environment. I don't think that's a realistic option for many of us. So I think the next thing that we actually need to start doing is looking at how can we protect ourselves? How can we earth? How can we do things like paint our house so that we're blocking out as much of those EMFs as possible? How can we put things on our windows that are blocking out as much of those EMFs as possible? How can we get outside and actually put our feet on the earth really regularly for the most of our day? How can we earth our beds so that we're, rebalancing our ions as we actually sleep? Like, what are some of the things that we can do for that? And I think that that is the way to actually move forward and start protecting our families, is implementing some of those strategies. So I highly recommend, if you haven't gone and watched Karen's videos yet over at Zacholi Organics, totally do that. I've put them on the page because I really want people to see that information and be able to start utilizing it as much as possible. Some of that is just things that you can do at home, like the bed cover that she has made for herself and her family cost maybe $50. Yes, you can totally spend hundreds on buying some earthing sheet covers and things like that on your bed, or you can start making this at home. I can hear my kids singing in the background. If it is too noisy, like, give me a thumbs up, tell me, or a boo. Don't give me a boo. But like, just pop it into the comments. Yes, they're really loud. You might hear me do the mama be quiet cry. So I want to answer some of these other questions. So that is my answer for the 5G stuff. We're not going to escape it. I don't think that it's a realistic idea to think that we are. I think the best thing we can actually do is prepare ourselves by making sure we're walking among trees really, really regularly. If we're near a beach, walking on that beach with no shoes on as much as we possibly can. If you've got a garden, walking on your own garden with no shoes on. You need to make sure there's no chemicals in your garden. So for example, if you spray a fertilizer or you spray anything on that lawn, then that's going to interfere with your absorption of rebalancing those ions and earthing. But also bringing in as much as we possibly can, like the bed sheets and, earthing mats that you can be walking around on in your house. If you can get concrete flooring, that's also another one that actually helps you to rebalance your ions. And the rebalancing is actually the key element of keeping yourself healthy. Some people are more sensitive than others. I do have some clients who have constant headaches, and they have to be really on point with making sure that they're earthing. They've got earthing shoes, earthing mattresses, all sorts of things to actually help them. Otherwise, they actually have chronic pain. I don't know if you have experienced this, where maybe you've been working on your computer all day and then at the end of the day your hands just have a dull ache, and it's not a muscular dull ache, it's just maybe even a vibrating sort of feeling, and that's because of the EMFs that have come off the computer. So again, you want to be mindful, put the computer away as much as possible, but there are things that you can buy even to help you with the EMFs for your computer. So that would be the way that I would be going. I would be investing in some of those things. I've got a salt lamp back there. That also helps with the negative and positive ions. Essentially create a safe environment, at least in your home if you possibly can. Same with our phones. There are cases that you can buy that help you with the EMFs from that and reduce that as well. So that's the way I would be going when it comes to 5G. Definitely sign up for the petitions. Definitely encourage your friends to look at how dangerous they can be. But also be really proactive in protecting yourself so that you're the one looking after you and not relying on other people to do that. Okay, so there is a couple of other questions here. Jordana has asked, heavy metals. Can I talk about heavy metals? So heavy metals are super interesting. Many of us have now got at least some level of heavy metals in our bodies. So for me, for example, I've grown up in the Huon in Tasmania, and in that environment, I lived in the middle of an apple orchard, and one of the things that they spray to keep the apples organic, or to prevent them from, getting blossom rot and all the other bugs that are trying to eat them, is that they actually spray copper through the apple field. So every, several months or so, I think it was maybe every quarter, that they would go through while they would go through and they would spray the trees with copper, which meant I actually have a high level of copper in my body because I've been living in that environment. And there is a seesaw when it comes to copper and zinc. So, sorry, my household is getting noisy now. There's no mute button on this one either, so I can't press mute, so you can't hear them while I yell at them. Gee, that's cheeky. Okay, so there is a seesaw when it comes to copper. So if somebody's copper is high, then their zinc is low because of this seesaw balance of zinc and copper. Ideally, we want it to be balanced. Sophie? We'll see if somebody comes. They're actually at the other end of the house. So if you guys can hear, I've put my mic on, so hopefully you can't hear them as much, but I can hear them. Can you go tell the other children to be a little bit more quiet, please? And so there is a seesaw balance when it comes to copper and zinc. So my copper has been up, which means my zinc is low. And zinc is absolutely imperative when it comes to repair and regeneration. So to repair any wounds and you know, if you've got a cut, for example, I think I've got a little scar here. Let's see if you can see that. Yeah, there's a little scar there. I just got a little scrape on the side of my hand when I was opening something. Now, because my zinc is low, the scarring has formed more dark and prominent because I don't have enough zinc there to actually repair it. So for me, part of my health journey is to continuously put in more zinc so that I'm filling up my zinc needs so that I can repair and regenerate more efficiently. But the same with other metals. So depending on what other metal you might have out, let's say your zinc is really high, then your copper is going to be really low, and that's going to have other follow-on side effects. So she has asked, can you talk about heavy metals and the effects on the body and the nervous system? So yes, heavy metals are one of those things that I see so much when it comes to clinic. Like when I'm working with clients in clinic, I would say easily 50% of my clients will have a heavy metal problem. And heavy metals will sit in our bodies, and therefore our bodies can't process the things that it needs to do. So let's say you have amalgam fillings, for example. So those are the silvery type fillings that we used to all get in the 80s. If you have some of those, then every time you eat or drink something hot, cold, or just chew, then mercury is being released into your bloodstream. And so that is then compromising your immune ability, your ability to think clearly, your ability to actually fight off invaders. It can cause headaches. It can cause a whole range of things. And one of which is, of course, that Jordan is referring to is the nervous system. So heavy metals are something that I'll often see when people have maybe nervous system disorders. So often if I was to do a heavy metal test for somebody who has MS, for example, I'm likely to see, and this is not always the case, but I'm likely to see that they really have high heavy metals, and particularly high metals of mercury or high levels of mercury in their system. And there can be a whole range of different other metals that we can see in the body. Now, our bodies actually do have some detoxification ability, so they're able to move out some of these heavy metals. However, we need to support that, and we need to allow that to happen. And naturally, when the body is moving out a heavy metal, it doesn't want to move anything from anywhere unless it can get it from in the body to all the way out. And so we'll often see people who have a heavy metal problem, but then the heavy metals are not releasing. And in that case, what we have to ask is what's blocking the body being able to take it from here to all the way out. And some of that requires us to eliminate a whole range of foods that are problematic. So again, I did my hair analysis test for my daughter. Removing those foods allows her body to actually be more in alignment, be more, the connection between her cells functions better. And it allows then for some of the other natural reparative and restorative motions to take place in the body. So by removing those foods, we're creating more space for her body's natural ability to shift out heavy metals to take place. Now, along with that, there are going to be things that I, as a practitioner, will do to help support that. I might include a binder. And again, that's not going to be activated charcoal. It's usually going to be something that is very specific, like activated volcanic ash. I'm also going to increase fats because fats encapsulate the heavy metals and they move them out safely so they're not causing more damage. The other thing is hydration. I'm going to make sure she's having plenty of hydration so that the body can shift out those heavy metals effectively with the least amount of damage as possible, because the preferred method of removal of heavy metals in our body is via the kidney pathway. So we need plenty of fluids to be able to do that. And we want to make sure that all of those systems are working as well as we possibly can. So the body does have the ability to shift those out as long as we're getting out of its way. And that is the key element. The body can repair and restore and do a whole bunch of amazing things, but we essentially have to get out of its way. And we have to maybe put in the correct foods that are going to help do that and remove the foods that are not helping with that. And the same with the environmental toxins. If there are environmental toxins in the house, then we need to move those out as well, so that there is just pure alignment and the body can actually just get on with doing what it knows that it needs to do. So I hope I've kind of given a little bit of an explanation there about the heavy metals, and you can ask any more questions if you've got them on that. What else is on this list? Grapeseed oil. Rebecca Pond has asked, is grapeseed oil okay? So my answer for that is I use grapeseed oil for massages for some of my really sensitive clients. So if they often will be sensitive to nuts, they might be sensitive to other things. Coconut oil is one of the ones that can often allow, like a lot of people are actually sensitive to that. So grapeseed oil is one that I use for that. I'm always using though a cold pressed oil. When it comes to seeds and nuts, as an oil, it needs to be cold pressed, and it also needs to be not heated, because those oils, once you heat them, they go rancid. And when you're consuming rancid oil, you are essentially creating a lot of oxidative damage within the body and a lot of inflammation. So yes, you can use it. It wouldn't be my preferred oil for an internal oil. I'm not going to eat that oil, but I do use it for massages. But if you want to eat that, the key element would definitely be don't heat that and watch for rancicity. So you want to make sure it's in a dark glass bottle, that it's not in sunlight, that it's not getting heat exposure, and that, you know, you're using it wisely. I wouldn't be eating it, but you can. Okay, what else has been asked? I've talked a little bit about the 5G question. If you want to know, go back to the answer for that. I would again highly recommend you watch some of Zach Ollie Organics videos that she's been doing. She's done 3 videos now on EMFs and giving you some really practical things that you can start using actually in your home to help you, rebalance and limit your EMF exposure. Okay, Karen has asked how to keep blood sugar stable so it doesn't affect our mood or energy levels. That's a good question, Karen. So how do you keep blood sugar stable? You eat foods that are lower in glycemic index so that they don't give you a big giant spike, so that you are that your blood sugar is actually stable with eating those foods. So those are things like your veggies and your meats. Those ones are lower in glycemic index. Some fruit is lower in glycemic index, and pairing things. So for example, if you were to eat an apple, your blood glucose will spike some, not overly, but it will definitely spike. But if you pair that apple with yogurt, then you're going to have a slower release of glucose, because the fat slows down the absorption of the glucose, and it gives you a much more stable ability to have a stable blood sugar and a slower release of the sugars that you're actually eating. So it's pairing, if you're going to eat carbohydrates or high carbohydrate foods, eating them with a fat will actually slow down the blood sugar absorption, or the absorption of that sugar, which then slows down the spike in your blood sugar. So that's the key element, is actually pairing foods, eating lower glycemic foods to start with. And that's, basic simple stuff. Fruit, veg, meat, those sorts of things. Grains are higher in carbohydrates and they're going to spike you. But eating them together, combining them with a fat, allows for a lower blood sugar release. The other element to remember though, if you are pairing a sugar and a fat together, you're likely to gain some weight. So for some people that's useful information. Those people who are trying to put on weight, that's useful. For those who are trying to lose weight or manage their weight, then it might be a good idea to start looking at where are you pairing your carbohydrates with your fats, because the two together will help you gain weight. Okay, so Therese has asked, what are 1 to 2 herbal medicines you really recommend for those that are wanting to start the basics with their family? My top 2 herbs that I would recommend would be elderberries. Elderberries are so great for the immune system. They, encourage the immune system. They support the immune system. They lift it up. They're fantastic. They're easy to get people to have as well because they don't taste horrible, especially if you're making, say, a syrup, and then you can, ferment it so that you're reducing the sugar, but you've still got the beautiful flavor. Elderberries would be the top of that list because of how good they are for our immune system and how good they are at helping us to ward off colds and flus and those sorts of things. And my second one would be golden seal. Now, golden seal has to be one of my all-time favorites when it comes to herbs because of how it lifts the benefits of other herbs. So golden seal in particular is it is an antiseptic, so to speak. So you can use that on cuts and wounds, funguses, on all of those sorts of things. There has been some studies with golden seal and staph and how it is able to prevent some staph infections. And reduce staph infections and all of that sort of stuff. But it is also used, for urinary tract infections. It's used for, what else have I got on my list that it can be used for? Anti-inflammatory, antibacterial, antimicrobial, a detoxifier. It's a bitter, it's immune stimulant. It does all of these amazing things. But the thing that I love about it even more is that if you pair that with another herb, it actually lifts the benefits of that herb. So taking golden seal and putting it together with echinacea means that you're going to get an even better lift in the immune system, even more support, even more defense against colds and flus and things like that. If you mix that with, say, another herb, again, it's going to lift and make those properties work even better. So those are my 2, elderberries and golden seal. So if you have any questions, let me know because I think I've gone through all of the ones that have been put on my Facebook page. I'll just check that there isn't any more. But yes, those are pretty much it for answering those questions. Again, if you want to continue this discussion, I'd love to come back and do another question and answers video next week. So pop your questions into the comments here and I will happily come back and chat about them. That's pretty much it. Have fun learning all this information. If you've found anything really, really useful, so for example, you've been working on EMFs and lowering your EMFs in your house, pop in any things that you can into our comments so that we can all learn together and we can all benefit from it. Right, that's it. That's me for today. If you want to join Fermentation School, don't forget that's coming up. It's starting in, I think, a week and a half. So I'm looking forward to seeing as many people in there as possible because fermentation is totally where it's at when it comes to lifting everything. Lifting the nutrients of the elderberries, supporting general health, gut health. It's my go-to when it comes to gastro has entered our house. I'm going straight for the ferments so that I don't get gastro. All right, bye for now and I'll see you next week.